Hello, my name is Meghan Sylvester and welcome to my office here at the Iberville Museum in Plaquemine, Louisiana. I first graduated from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette in 2015 after receiving my Bachelor's of Arts in History with a minor in French, and then again in 2017 with a Master's in History and a concentration in Public History. While I was in graduate school at UL, I interned in Rhode Island at two history museums. One was the Museum of Work and Culture in Woonsocket, and the other was at a Victorian house museum in Warwick, Rhode Island. And I did this in partnership with the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Area. Shortly after graduating, I was hired to be the curator and director of the Iberville Museum here in Plaquemine. Iberville Parish is one of Louisiana's oldest parishes, and the history here, especially in Plaquemine, has a lot to do with the history of Bayou Plaquemine. Bayou Plaquemine is not a long bayou, it's only about 11 miles long, but it has a very rich history with early settlement in Louisiana, specifically because it was one of the few waterways that connected the Mississippi River with the Atchafalaya Swamp, and therefore allowing early travelers to travel between New Orleans and the Atchafalaya district. The town of Plaquemine was settled at the mouth of Bayou Plaquemine along the Mississippi River. The museum is located in the parish's old courthouse that was built in 1848. It's located on Main Street, and it was used as the courthouse until 1906 when the parish sold it to the city of Plaquemine. And then from that point on, it was used as City Hall until the 1980s when it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places and then became vacant. Now, there was some talk in the community back then about potentially demolishing the building because it needed a lot of repair, but thankfully, with a push from some citizens, the city instead restored the building in the 1990s and then leased it to the Iberville Museum Association. The Iberville Museum Association was founded in 1998 under the leadership of Louis J. Nicolosi and a group of volunteers who were just really passionate about their local history and sought a way to preserve it. A lot of the artifacts that are in some of our older displays were collected around that time and were given as long-term loans from members of this community. The museum officially opened their doors in the summer of 2000, and so for the last 21 years, we have been working to better preserve, interpret, and share the history of the parish. We are located right next door to the St. John Catholic Church, which I think you can hear the bells ringing right now. Yes. And the museum is located across the street from the Plaquemine Lock House, which was opened in 1909, and it now exists as a state historic site that you can also tour. I'm one of the first directors to be hired full-time working for the museum, and I'm also the museum's only full-time employee, so I wear a lot of hats, and so my job ranges from more director work, like is developing our budget and working with our board of trustees, to marketing and advertising and outreach, to developing exhibits, researching, collections management, all the way to even giving tours to visitors and guests, and gardening in our outside flower beds. A lot of the museum's collection was collected between the years of 2000 and 2013, and at that point all of the objects received were received as long-term loans from members of the community. And so one of my first jobs as the museum's director and curator was to develop a new collections management policy that narrowed our scope of what we accepted into the museum into items that really contribute to the overall history of the parish. Another huge project that I took over once I started working here was the development of our new permanent exhibition on the Atchafalaya Basin. A large portion of Iberville Parish is made up of the Atchafalaya Swamp, and we decided to make an exhibit that focused on the people who made the swamp their home. So it starts with the Native Americans and then goes all the way into the 1950s, when pretty much all of the families that had been living in the swamp were forced out. The exhibit also features some of the major industries that occupied the swamp, as well as its change from an swamp wetland into the Mississippi River spillway. We closed in March of 2020 with the rest of the world for the COVID-19 pandemic, but by May of 2020, I was able to come back here into my office and continue working, mostly because I'm the only employee, so I was gonna be the only one here. And because we were closed for the rest of the year, my plans had kind of shifted as to what the museum's projects would be for 2020. I started working on some backlog projects that involved updating our collections. That involved me going into our collection space, physically pulling things out of the storage, re-photographing them, re-uploading them into our collections database, updating that metadata, and then putting them into new archival grade boxes. However, working from home at the beginning of the pandemic gave me opportunities to finish our virtual tour that had kind of been sidelined by other projects. And so I think within the first couple of weeks of quarantine, we uploaded our first ever online exhibit on the historic churches of Iberville Parish. A lot of our older displays are focused on veterans from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. When the museum was first starting out, Veterans Day was one of the museum's biggest events, and so a lot of our collection revolves around veterans. But we also have a lot of objects from the turn of the 20th century that represent lifestyle and culture, and a lot are old appliances that either we don't use too much today or developed into modern appliances like an icebox or a washing machine. Currently, the biggest project that I'm working on is a redesign of some of our oldest exhibit spaces. We plan to, kind of break up the space and give us more opportunity to interpret that early history of the parish and of the city of Plaquemine itself. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed learning about what I do as the Director and Curator of the Iberville Museum, and I hope you come visit us. Bye.